I've been meaning to do this video for some time now, but have been putting it off because I hate to talk, and even more than that, I hate to hear myself talk. But like with my last talking video, I'm just going to plow through it the best I can. I'll also try and keep from saying and as much as I possibly can. I took some notes. It's a lot of pages, but I made the print really large too, so I can see. There I just said before I get to the main point of the video, I thought I'd share a little bit about my musical background and the story of my YouTube channel. I started playing electric bass when I was in the 8th grade, and that was when my mother bought me my first bass, which was a short scale Cameo. I'm not even sure if it was a Fender copy or not, and I think it was pretty awful, but it was what she could afford, and it was good enough. To back up a little bit further, I started playing the upright bass in the middle school orchestra during the second half of the 6th grade, and that was when the music teacher did a recruitment campaign and demonstrated all the band and orchestra instruments to the classroom. There we go. In the he demonstrated every instrument, and most of the kids gravitated toward the sexy instruments, the saxophone, trumpet, flute, and clarinet, and even the violin and cello got some action. When he got to the bass, he demonstrated that by whistling over the bass line, whistling the melody to the Andy Griffith Show over the bass line. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. But I said that was like the coolest thing I'd ever heard, and also no one else raised their hand. So I said, well, that's perfect for me. I'll be in my own little world. So at the time, I thought participation was mandatory, that I had to choose an instrument. Apparently it was voluntary. If I had known it was voluntary, I probably never would have raised my hand. But I started playing the upright, and they'd let me take it home during summer vacation and Christmas break. And I remember stuffing the bass into my mother's two-door Maverick back then. I really don't know how it fit, but I remember she had to drive in the right-hand lane on the way home because the neck of the bass stuck out of the window for about 2 feet. So I learned to read a little bit, just the whole notes, half notes, quarter notes. But when it started getting fancy, it became a little bit too much like math for me, and I just couldn't grasp it. But by this time, another fellow had taken up the bass, and he really excelled at the reading part of it. So I found that if I could listen to him, I could read the notes. I just, the timing thing was an issue. If I heard him play it or the orchestra leader play the part, I found that I could pick up the rhythm and memorize it pretty well. So that's what I did. And not that the songs we were doing were very difficult. I think Pizzicato Pete was the orchestra's big hit number. And also around this time, I became a little bit obsessed with the Jesus Christ Superstar album that had found its way into our house. And I just remember just gravitating toward the electric bass on that album. I didn't even know what an electric bass was or what its function was. But when I remember listening to that album, my ears were just drawn to that sound. And then in the 7th grade, the Tommy film soundtrack came out, and same thing. The bass was really heavy on that album, and I think I really liked both those albums because they told pretty cool stories. The lyrics were great, and they had this great bass on it. I think those had a lot. Had something to do with me leaning toward the bass guitar. But what pushed me over the edge to playing bass was Kiss. And I've said it before, I think I was more attracted to the horror imagery of Gene Simmons, the dragon boots, bat wings, and fire breathing and blood spitting than I was the bass guitar. But since he played bass, that's what I wanted to play. And the first bass my mother got me was at this little shop called Bolak's Music. Mr. Bolak. And he sold mostly sheet music and some band instruments. And he told my mother it was very important for me to take lessons, which I did. And it basically rehashed the little bit I did know, about reading. And for some reason, I don't know if this is normal, but none of my experience with that I had with the upright bass transferred over to the electric. It was like a completely, new instrument to me. And anyway, I didn't find the lessons very interesting. And it was also kind of weird that he never touched the bass. He had a little room off to the side, like a walk-in closet-sized room, and he had a double-decker organ in there. And he would play facing the wall, and I would sit behind him, play along. It was just what I was like, how's this guy going to teach me to play bass if he doesn't even pick it up? But I think I took probably about six weeks. After about 6 weeks of lessons, I got bored to death. And I remember getting up the courage to bring in a Kiss Destroyer album. And I said, listen, I'd want to learn something off this, and handed him the album. And I remember the look on his face when he saw it. And he said, he goes, well, we can get to this at another time, but I've got a song I'm going to teach you today. And that was the day I learned When the Saints Come Marching In. And it was probably one of my last lessons. It was a dark day. So I came to the realization that if I wanted to learn how to play the songs I liked, I was going to have to do it on my own. And at that point, I also started playing in a band right away. And I mostly played what the guitar players told me to play. We were doing Stones and Skynyrd and that sort of stuff. And on my own, I started, eking out some Kiss stuff, and then moved on to Black Sabbath a year or so after that. And then, I think I'm jumping around a little bit, but after the 2.5, 3 year mark, I stumbled upon Rush, and then that was that. So I would just sit in front of my record player and pick out every note I could. Then it was a matter of getting the parts up to speed and then trying to play along and see if things lined up. And if they didn't, it was back to the drawing board. It's the same thing I do now, just one note at a time. But after discovering Rush, I kind of worked my way through as much of All the World's a Stage as I could. And then when I was done with that, I started moving to the back catalog, which was Hemispheres and Farewell to Kings and Fly By Night and that stuff. And then Permanent Waves came out, so I started learning that. And what else? I think I can skip ahead. But for me, those were some of my happiest times playing. Just me and my bass and the record player, and just diving deep into that stuff, trying to learn it. After that, I'd continue to learn Rush albums as they came out, in their entirety, almost, up until about Hold Your Fire. And then after that, I started just picking and choosing stuff. And also early on, I started getting into some other progressive stuff like Kansas, Yes, and Tull, as well as some jazz fusion like Al Di Meola and John Luke Ponty. And a lot of that stuff was still way over my head, but I would figure out what I could and make up parts for the stuff I couldn't play. And, it's just a challenge. Where else? Anyway, I played in bands all through high school, but practicing on my own and learning songs is really what I remember best about this time. during summer vacations, it wasn't unusual for me to play 6 hours a day. Plus, when I was in school, I'd cut a lot, and I'd stay at home and play then too. And I would just practice songs I already knew, or if I got tired of that, I'd try learning new stuff. And once in a while, I'd throw some, I'd noodle around, make my own riffs up, and sometimes just throw some scales in there to build up some finger strength. And even into my 20s, I'd bring my bass to work, and I'd play during my lunch hour. So fast forward, I practiced a lot, learned a lot of songs, and I got to be a halfway decent bass player. And I did everything a young bass player or musician does. I learned songs, played in cover bands, got tired of playing other people's music, and then started writing songs and playing in original bands, and doing demos, getting stupid pictures taken, and then eventually got tired of playing for free or even paying to play sometimes, and went back into doing cover stuff just to make money. And I did that for a long time. I've also played on a lot of people's projects, done a lot of recording sessions for other people too. I'm not really good at cataloging that stuff though. I haven't kept track of a lot of, actually I did something last year with a fella. He just dropped off copies. I haven't listened to it yet. Don Lewis Band. I play with him for a few years, and he just did something recently. Where am I? I guess it was always the process of learning songs, writing songs, and rehearsing them with the band, and that I enjoyed the most. I never really enjoyed playing in front of an audience. It's just not in my personality type, much the same. I wouldn't want to give like an oral report in front of a classroom. It's just not me. But, playing out was a necessary evil. What was the point of doing all that work and putting a band together and working on the music if you weren't going to put it in front of an audience? But I did it. I didn't enjoy it, but I did it all. Later on, when I was playing in cover bands for money, and I used to play out 2 or 3 nights a week, I did make some money, but it became a job, and eventually it became a job I just didn't want to do anymore. It was like doing laundry. And in around 2007, I was only playing once a month and barely touching my bass between gigs. And by 2009, I was about to the point where I was going to just put my bass under the bed for good, because I didn't get really any satisfaction out of playing anymore. And that's when I stumbled across a YouTube video of a young guy doing a Rush cover, and it was pretty good. It was a big production. He had green screen, like flames behind him and stuff, and it was pretty good. And I said to myself, well, if there's something in this world that you can do halfway decent, it's, play along with Rush, So I figured if I was going to put the bass to bed for good, that it would be nice to have some sort of record here, that I was here, and that I had played the bass, and and that I was halfway decent. I didn't want to be that old guy telling my niece or nephew or some other young person that I used to play the bass and I was all right, and then walking away and having them go, yeah, sure you were, old man, sure you were. So I really just started the YouTube channel as I was going to do my what was I going to do? Just a couple of my favorite songs, maybe 5 or 10 of my favorite songs, just to have up there and say, yeah, I used to play, look here, listen or watch. And so I figured if I could find this fairly simple way to do it, that's what I was going to do. I bought a lot of the same equipment I'm using now, a pretty inexpensive camera, and I used to use just a microphone, and I've evolved a little bit, but it's still very simple. But as I started, practicing the songs, for the videos, something was rekindled, and you know, I found myself enjoying the songs as I was getting them into shape, and just enjoying the process of playing and working the stuff out again. And 10 covers turned into 20, which turned into 50, and then I started just putting some other stuff in there, and then I even started learning new stuff that I'd always thought was beyond my abilities. And I just kind of fell back into the joy of playing again. I just want to see if I covered everything. I also just started putting up some stuff that I thought was interesting from a bass player's perspective. I started getting some subscribers and comments from people who expressed their appreciation for the videos, because they were able to use them to learn some of the songs themselves. And that was an unintended consequence of my YouTube channel, but it's since become its platform, because I use the fair use clause of copyright law to keep a lot of my videos from being blocked, because it's, you know, non-profit and educational and personal use in nature. So that's that. So there's a whole thing where it's going to sound like I'm bragging and stuff, but a lot of, you know, it's a lot of nice stuff. It's coming up in next January. It's going, see, I'm going to need a sip of coffee. Hold on. I'm going to pull the mic away, because last time I took a sip of something while I was talking, it sounded like someone was flushing a toilet when I swallowed. Let's see what time it is. Jeez, man, this thing is dragging on, isn't it? Anyway, it's going to be like 8 or 9 years, I think, in next January that I've been doing the channel, and I just reached 20,000 subscribers this week, which which may not seem like a whole lot. There's a lot of people with a lot more subscribers than that, but for a person who hates to even be photographed, you know, that's a lot, I think, for me. I'm very, very pleased with that. Got 390 videos. 129 of those are Rush covers. I'm not counting the ones I've redone. And I don't know, close to 5 million views, bunch of stuff. I was recognized a couple times at a few Rush shows, which was, you know, wow, that was really cool. And just I don't even like talking about this stuff. Elvis Costello's bass player, Bruce Thomas, featured a couple of my covers on his personal webpage, and guy from Blue Oyster Cult tweeted one of my covers. I met a couple of great people. Met Christopher Nelson of Lotus Land Rush Tribute, and he was a really nice guy, a great player, and a great, you know, Rush fan. Met a couple other people actually I met through YouTube, came to visit me at the house. I've spoken to people on the phone. A lot of great experiences, but yeah, I don't like talking about that stuff. But on top of all these things, now this is where we're getting to the point. On top of all these things, every day I get to wake up and read these incredibly generous and you know, just wonderful comments that people leave on my videos. Some of them are so you know, so kind, and you know, some are over the top. I don't believe a word of them, but I think it's very nice that people take the time and trouble to leave them. And all this stuff is cool, but for me, the greatest gift is that, you know, I'm back where I started, in my room with my bass, learning the bass lines that I find interesting, and you know, listening to the songs and finding the pieces, putting them together, and completing the puzzle. You know, I revisited old favorites and pushed my limits to learn stuff that I thought was out of reach. And that's, you know, if if I stop doing it tomorrow, it's just a wonderful thing, because I mean, I was ready to put it down completely, you know, back before I started the channel, and you know, I've gotten all this extra life out of it, and it's really been a great experience. So, you know, so what? I guess the YouTube channel was going to be an epitaph on my life as a bass player, and it really turned into a rebirth. And so the whole point of the video is that to every person who thanks me for posting the videos, whether they watch them for their own enjoyment or use them as learning tools, I'd like to say that I'm the one who should be thanking you for you know, for keeping it interesting and just for doing what you do. So I think that's it. I hope it wasn't too bad. I'm sure it was too long, but thank you very much. Take care.